everyone, welcome back to the channel. You're watching Unbiased Magic Reviews, the most objective magic review channel here on YouTube. Today I'm taking a look at Dani DaOrtiz's new project called the Force Project. Specifically, we're taking a look at Chapter 1, the 4 Forces. Now, I was really looking forward to this project because, as we all know, Dani DaOrtiz is the master of psychological forces. So you guys know that I have no disclosures. No major magic company has sent this to me to review or put out an advertisement for you. So you guys know everything I tell you is my own opinion. And if something is utter trash and garbage, well, I won't hesitate to tell you that. And it's important that you know that because a lot of these magic review channels you guys are watching are people that are supplied stuff for free. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I would urge you to do that because that shows me that you're interested in this material, and then I'll do more reviews similar to this. So this first project of Dani DaOrtiz kicks off with him showing you a routine that uses an old force, but he has dressed it up and routined it in such a way that it is very elaborate and very deceiving to everyone that you're going to perform it for. He goes over the usual format, which is the what, how, and why format, where he first shows you a live performance of the routine. Then he spends about 5 minutes going over the method, or the methods in this case, because there's multiple methods here. And then he goes over the how, which is really the meat of the lecture, which is where he goes over all of the psychology, he goes over all of the concepts, and he goes over all of the important audience management, which is just pure gold. And that's really probably the most valuable part of these lessons that you're going to find. So I was really pleasantly surprised with this first chapter because, like I said, the main force that he teaches you is very old. I mean, you could even find it in greater magic, and many modern day magicians have used the force, tried to dress it up and elaborate it. Like, I know some examples are like Mark Mason has a routine that he put out with this. David Regal has multiple versions of a routine that use this for maximal impact. So the actual force is not new, but the way that he has routined this is completely original, and all the methods that he's employing are just great. He's using some concepts that will leave your spectators completely baffled. He introduces this idea of convincing through influence, and the major idea of that is that he's routine this in a way where your spectators will never even begin to suspect what possible method that you're using. And you know, the main idea of that is that if you put something in your hand and vanish it, the first place a spectator is going to look is in the other hand. And so the way that he has routined this is in a way where your spectators will never even begin to suspect that possibly it's in the other hand, in this example, for instance. He also brings back another concept that he's used in some of his other lectures and some of his other effects, which he calls the closing doors concept, which is basically closing the door on a question before it's even asked. So you're actually answering things, you're actually putting out ideas, you're putting out fires before the fire even starts, is the basic idea of it. And so it's a very elaborate design of the routine using multiple methods. And I will admit to you guys that even watching the initial performance, the instant dual reality that he's using, that fooled me when I watched that initially. The actual major force, I had a very good idea of what he was doing when it got to that part, but the instant dual reality totally fooled me. And so I think because there's so much going on here, I think you're really going to like it a lot. So besides the main effect that you're going to learn in all of these concepts and ideas, he also does throw in a bonus impromptu effect, which you may like as well. It's kind of like more for one-on-one, and he goes over it really quickly at the end, but it was just a bonus that he threw in there because the main effect does use a modified deck. So the impromptu version he teaches you, it actually uses a completely different concept, and it doesn't use the main force that he's teaching you here, but it is something else that you may want to use. And I think he just threw that in there because he wanted you to have something you could do just impromptu with a deck that you have on hand. So that's really what you're going to learn on here. And if you didn't watch the trailer, the routine that he teaches you basically is as follows. He takes a deck of cards and gives the little shuffle, and then he shows one spectator. He says, oh, here, how about this card? We're going to use this card. And he tells somebody to his left, I want you to stop me on that card I just showed him. And he names the card, and he starts dealing cards face up. I think it was like a jack of clubs. And then that spectator, wherever they stop him, he's going to isolate that card face down. I really liked all the little convincers that are built in there, and especially the audience management is just perfect. The second spectator, he does the same thing where he shows somebody a card. He says, okay, well, how about we go with this card? You know, he names the card out loud, and then the second spectator does the same thing where he starts dealing cards face up, and wherever they stop him, he gives them multiple choices. Do you want this card? Do you want that card? It's very, very convincing that it's a very free choice. They isolate the card face down, and then he does the same thing with a third spectator. Now, when he gets to the fourth spectator, the best part about that is that he hands them the rest of the cards and tells them to just start dealing them, and that last spectator can stop wherever they like. They're going to isolate the card in their hand, and he does like a really quick recap, and then he hands each person the card that they stopped at, and they can each name the card that they were supposed to stop at. They can turn over the cards in their hand, and they're all the card they were supposed to stop at. So I really liked the multiple methods, especially all the little convincers he's built in, because it feels like there's no way you could have any control over what's going on. It just feels like everything is outside of your hands, even though it isn't. And as I mentioned, the main force that's at play is never even considered by the spectator because of how this has been dressed up so much, which is what makes it really so good. So in terms of like any real negatives here, I would say that maybe the only real negative is that you may have to just practice a little bit so that way you could perform this absolutely smoothly. This is probably the type of effect you're not going to be able to perform instantly, just because if you want to perform it as smoothly as he does and make it look so effortless, you're probably going to have to practice a little bit to be able to get it like that. And especially because there is some audience management that's necessary there. And I really liked those little touches he put about that, because oftentimes people are scared when they put the cards in the hands of the spectator for them to do something, because a lot of times they don't follow instructions or they don't hear what you're saying. And so I thought that that was especially valuable. So all the little tips he gave you, all the psychology, really make this chapter worth picking up. And I really thought that he offered here something that we really haven't seen in the Magic community in terms of the way that he presented this. Because like I said, the major force is as old as the hills, but the way that he has dressed it up and routined this is quite original and just refreshing. A couple of questions that you guys may have about the main effect and the impromptu effect. The main effect, as I mentioned, does use a modified deck, and if you're into card magic, no doubt you have the cards at home that you need to put this together. Of course, you're not going to be able to use the deck for many other routines because it is a modified deck. I mean, I could think of a couple other effects I could use that deck for, but it's really kind of just for this one effect, kind of like one and done, which is why I think that's why Dani DaOrtiz included the impromptu version because of that. And this deck doesn't use any complicated setup. So you're not going to be able to repeat the effect for the same group of people, but if you are a table hopper, you'll be able to immediately do it for the next table without any kind of major fuss. In terms of sleight of hand, there's no difficult moves. There's no difficult sleight of hand at all here. It's like completely beginner level in terms of that. There's really no angle restrictions, and it really is designed to be performed for a large group of people. So that is something that you might like as well. But I think those are the major questions that you guys probably have about the main effect, at least. Now, the impromptu effect, it uses a completely different force, and it uses any deck in use. I saw an effect that was very similar to it, actually, by Jay Sankey. Years ago, he put out a DVD. It was called like Magic with business cards, and on there, I think the effect was called like Stop Me Here. And it uses the exact same force here on this effect that Dani DaOrtiz teaches you. Basically, you're going to take a deck that's in use, and you're going to tell the spectator that you want them to stop you on. You're going to name a card, and you're going to start dealing cards face up until they say stop, and then you're going to take that next card and put it face down, and then you're going to name another card that you want them to stop you on, and you're going to do the same thing again. Wherever they stop you, you're going to put that card face down, and finally one last card. You're going to do the same thing where you deal cards face up. They're going to stop you somewhere, and then you're going to isolate the card, and you can show them that the 3 cards you isolated were the 3 cards that you told them to stop you at. So this is completely impromptu, no difficult sleight of hand, totally beginner level. You'll be able to immediately perform this effect instantly, and I think that's why Dani DaOrtiz included it on this project. So you have something you could immediately use, especially because it's so easy to perform. And he actually goes over it in about 5 minutes on the video. It's like the last 5 minutes of the video. But it's something you may be interested in. That's why I mention it here. So here's my rating for this chapter, and you can see that this is an overall very positive rating. You can see that I gave this a 4.25 out of 5. It's a great routine, and just the major concept and all of the methods and psychology that's at play here is just wonderful. So I think you're really gonna like it a lot. Of course, I would highly recommend this to you guys. If you guys like this, and if I see that there's you know, a lot of comments and thumbs up and stuff, then I may review the next chapter or all the chapters in this whole season if I see that there's a lot of interest in this. So that's pretty much everything for this review. As usual, if you guys have any questions or comments, just leave them for me below. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next review.